of the North that are going to fall to the Conservatives, they register something like this. 2 seats at Preston are now in jeopardy. The 2 Stockport seats are in jeopardy, although I see that in one of the Stockport seats there is a recount, a seat in Bolton, 2 in Bradford, Lancaster is likely to go, possibly 2 seats in Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield. In the North West and in Yorkshire, I think, as a result of the results that have been coming in, the Conservatives are going to make a lot of advances tonight. Cliff?
And now to Robert Mackenzie for the state of the parties.
Well, at 12:39, we see Labour 38, Conservative 19. Remember again that 2/3 of the seats counting tonight are Labour held. Therefore, Labour is bound to forge ahead. But equally, Labour is suffering losses it cannot afford to have. It's made 2 gains, 1 from the Liberals and 1 regaining a seat they lost at a by-election. In fact, it does still look as if the 33 net losses will occur for Labour on the night.
And here's the result from Rossendale, confirming the Conservative gain there. This is Anthony Greenwood's old seat, and
7.8% swing there.
And Sutton and Cheam, which has been Conservative since 1885.
4.9% swing to the Conservatives there.
Richard Sharples, Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party organisation, must be a very happy man tonight.
Represents, and Eccles.
4.6% swing in Eccles.
They'll be burning the cakes tonight. Crewe, home of Rolls-Royce and so many railway junctions.
6.7% swing there.
And Bob Mellish back in at Bermondsey.
Yes, but a very close result. That's a most remarkable result. This is one of the safest of seats. If those figures are right, they really are a sensational swing. I think there's maybe something wrong about those figures.
Well, if it's so, it could really be a case of so near but yet so far, because he was appointed the new Minister of Housing just before the campaign began. But there you are, you need a government to be a Minister of Housing in.
But I think those figures were wrong. I really do.
All right, we'll check them. Let's go to County Durham and South Shields. Tyneside Labour stronghold, large shipbuilding up here, of course. Arthur Blenkinsop.
4.4% swing to the Conservatives in South Shields.
Romford.
And Dick Leonard back with 4.7% swing against him in this, what was a safe-ish Labour seat, now it's marginal.
This is where Ron Ledger was. He's retiring after some 15 years. There's Romford Station, which many an airman will know, having gone back from leave there myself once or twice. And now to Barnsley. There's no change at Barnsley, with Roy Mason in at Barnsley, yes, President of the Board of Trade.
Indeed, one of the most successful members of the Labour government.
And as all these are going through, on a desk over on my left, I wonder what Robert Carville has got really to say about his own remarks in his newspaper this morning. Yesterday, Bob, I'm sorry. Robert Carville.
Well, watching these results, the overwhelming personal impression for me is how the polls have let me down a stinker. I'm one of the journalists who for years and years and years has been able to read polls and sound very clever by forecasting election results, by-elections, general elections, on the basis of the figures. This is the first time the polls have really come unstuck in a great big way. And now, of course, I'm shattered, even though it was my own paper this morning that carried the one poll in the Evening Standard that suggested the Tories might win. I should think that once the great inquest in the Labour Party and how Harold Wilson's gamble came unstuck is over, they won't take long before they get round to talking about the role and the possible effect of opinion polls on election campaigns. I should think myself that right from the start they dictated the mood of this one, and they probably, Labour, I think, will hear saying, induced some mood of complacency. Certainly, I think the Tories did very well to overcome the bad effect on morale which these polls must have had up and down in the constituencies. But however mortified I feel, and whatever the professionals may be saying about the pollsters, I think some people are probably pretty pleased. I think millions of voters tonight are absolutely tickled pink. They've had their revenge on the pollsters. They've fooled them. And I think that's something that the women in particular are rather pleased about, because they, I think, have resented just how clever the pollsters have been up to tonight. Back to Cliff.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Robert Carville. There's been so many things popping up on the screen. Recount, first of all.
Well, the recount at Middlesbrough was the one we forecast on the Middlesbrough East thing. It means something like a 4% swing if it's neck and neck, where Jeremy Bray is defending his seat in Middlesbrough West.
Now let's take some... Labour have held on to Northampton.
Reggie Paget.
And Let's take some results now. Bradford East, there's no change at Bradford East.
2% swing, one of the lowest swings we've had yet there.
But a very safe Bradford seat, this one. And next we go to Battersea South. This is kind of up the junction country, this is.
Yes, this is Ernest Perry, who was the government whip. And this was one of the places where the Wilsons were roughed up on the campaign.
It's one of the seats the Conservatives would have hoped to win on this on the swing we've been having, but the Labour Party has held on there. The swing was kept down to 3.4%.
And home of Manchester City, this is Moss Side.
And here, there's only a 1% swing to the Conservatives in this seat. It is changing fairly fast. There are a lot of immigrants there, and if there was a swing against immigrants, you might have expected a different thing.
And Blackburn, Mrs. Castle.
Yes, Minister of Employment and Productivity, a minister who might have expected perhaps to change ministries had there been a Labour government.
A 5% swing against Mrs. Castle.
And Labour Exchange. Liverpool, someone will be there before the night's out. Liverpool Exchange. This is Bessie Braddock's old seat.
Only 1% swing to the Conservatives in Liverpool Exchange, next door to Liverpool, Scotland, where, of course, there was a slight swing to Labour,
yes.
The only one we've had tonight.
Parry, one of the local party organisers in the area, well known to the supporters of Bessie Braddock.
Good, and I believe here comes yet some more news. And Winston Churchill is in for Stretford for Conservative. And Winston Churchill is in for Stretford. Well, he's tried before up in that neck of the woods, and now he's in.
Well, it was certain, I think, on the swings we've been having, he was certain to win this seat. He was very much favoured. It was a seat that only went to the Labour Party in '66, and Winston Churchill won. I'm then to see how his swing compares with other things, how far a personality candidate did make a bonus there.
Yes, that's Winston Churchill replacing Ernest Davis, Dr. Ernest Davis, who was Joint Parliamentary Secretary at the Ministry of Technology.
And we're standing by. We're keeping an eye now on Oxford. We're keeping an eye on Huyton. We're keeping an eye on everything. And another Conservative gain at Bury and Radcliffe. And this is where David Enser was the standing member. And David Enser stood down this time, and the seat has gone. The seat has gone. Quick one on...
Well, I think, again, on these figures, it's one that one would rather have expected to go. It was a Conservative seat, even in 1945, and for it now to go to back to the Conservatives is rather expectable.
Yes, the man, Mr. Hunt, who replaced David Ensor, wasn't nearly so well known in the constituency.
But is there all that much, really, in a sort of personal vote? Anthony Croston has held on to Grimsby. And now let's take the Stretford. Here is, in fact, Winston Spencer Churchill Jr. This is a constituency on the western fringe of Manchester, and in he goes. Now, what do you learn from those figures?
A 6.9% swing, slightly above any other ones we've had from that area of the country yet this evening. Not a great deal above, but slightly above. But in the mainstream of swings, where 90% of the results we've had have been in the 4 to 7% swing to the Conservative range.
And let's go to Manchester now to John Humphreys for a comment on that. At least he'll get a free ticket into Manchester United, Graham, won't he, John?
I'm sure they'll give him 2 free tickets. I don't know whether it's so surprising. I would think possibly this is a personality vote in Stretford. Winston Churchill, obviously the personality, and campaigned as if it was his father, a fairly flamboyant character, campaigning-wise at any rate. A nice little story about Winston Churchill. In fact, he got a lot of publicity while he was up here. Apparently he went into a pub. He did a lot of his campaigning in a pub. And he went into a pub one evening. Somebody was leaning against the bar, and he went up and introduced himself as Winston Churchill, and the chap on his way to
of Oxford hereby give notice that the total number of votes given for each candidate at the election was as follows. Vide licet. David Evan Trant Luard,
Labour,
22,989. Peter Henry Reeves, 5,103.
Conservative.
Christopher Montague Woodhouse, 24,000. $24,873, and that the above-mentioned Christopher Montague Woodhouse has been duly elected to serve as member for the said constituency.
And there you are.
Yes,
Well, that's a 4.1% swing in my own constituency of Oxford and puts the Conservatives back in a seat they've always held until 1966.
Yes, Montague Woodhouse was the member, in fact, from 1959 to 1966. Luard, who's lost the seat.
And I must interrupt you, but Leicester South West, they're recounting. Labour are defending a majority. This is where there was a by-election. This used to be held by Herbert Bowden, who is now Lord Aylestone.
Yes, I think it's a very surprising one. It involves a bigger than average swing to get Leicester South West, I think.
And I think we'll go to Geoffrey Priest for a comment on that one. We're all surprised down here, Geoffrey, by that recount in Leicester. Are you?
Well, not really on the way things are going. I think it's very marginal. I was interested in Monty Woodhouse getting back at Oxford. It may be something to do with his canvassing techniques. He sends helpers all up a long road, knocking people up, and as they pop out of their doors, he dashes up, shakes them by the hand, and runs on at a fast rate onto the next one. High-speed stuff. Cliff?
I think, in fact, let's pull the full result down. And Conservatives have gained Lancaster. Now, this Lancaster was lost, if you remember, when Humphrey Berkeley was the member there. He lost it to the Labour Party. I think a comment really from you,
remarkable. We've also just seen a thing that Labour held Brentford and Chiswick on a no swing at all to the Conservatives. That was a seat the Conservatives were certainly counting on, and it's almost the first real crumb of comfort the Labour Party have had in this evening's results.
Let's take now a look at some of the at a Conservative gain at Oxford. This is Conservative gain at Oxford, and there is Monty Woodhouse in.
On about a 4.5% swing.
It's in the pipeline. They're going to put it up anyway, but don't believe a word of it. It says Manchester Withington a Conservative gain. Let's just get it out of the way. It's not. So Robert Carey has been the Member of Parliament there for a long time. Ignore the Conservative gain.
It's a rather low swing to the Conservatives.
Yeah, but it is not a Conservative gain.
No,
Let me say that again. All right, Barry and Redcliffe. Let's go to Barry and Redcliffe. And this really is a Conservative gain now, this one. This is in Lancashire, 10 miles from Manchester, won by Labour in 64.
6.9% swing to the Conservatives there.
And yes, I think this is David Hunt replacing David Ensor and losing.
And here John Diamond has lost Gloucester. John Diamond is out at Gloucester. That was one of the names that David was mentioning when he was going through his list just now.
And that's a really, no, I didn't mention that. That's really sensational,
no,
Gloucester, because Gloucester has not been in Conservative hands since the war. Even in 1959, the Conservatives' best year, they didn't come very near winning Gloucester.
Yes, this is quite astonishing. This is Mrs. Sally Oppenheim taking over from John Diamond, who was, again, absolutely at the centre of the Labour government, a man who used to be called the Honourable No Man and was very much connected with government economic policy.
I'm going to stop you here because I can see down in Southampton, if I'm not mistaken, a declaration.
Southampton Itchen constituency, the votes cast at this election are as follows. Edwin Melvin Ian Bray,
National Democratic Party,
9,581. Horace Maybury King,
Speaker of the House of Commons,
29,417. Brian Henry Phillips,
Independent,
4,794. And Horace Maybury King is elected as a member for Southampton Itchen constituency.
And
a huge majority there, actually a good deal less of a majority than he had when he was opposed by somebody last time, but of course there was no Conservative there. It's the only seat in England in which there was no Conservative candidate and, in a sense, no Labour candidate.
And don't go any further because Nigel Fisher has held on to Surbiton for Conservatives. Now, this is a result that people were looking for because you may remember there's been a great deal of dissension in the Surbiton Conservative Party, and another sort of independent Conservative put out there, but Nigel Fisher held on to it. Robert Mackenzie, state of the parties, please.
Well, state of the parties. The position now is the Conservatives are making the gains they needed. They've got 9 gains from Labour and only 1 loss, and Labour has made 2 gains, but these were from the Liberals in one case and regaining a seat they'd lost at a by-election. So although you see Labour in the lead formally 54 to 33, the real point is they're making damaging losses and almost certainly will be knocked out of office. And of course the computer prediction is narrowed now, incidentally, to a Conservative majority of probably 45, considerably less than it looked some time ago, but a working majority by almost any definition.
Good. Robert Mackenzie, thank you very much indeed. And now let us take a look at the figures for the Conservative gain at Lancaster, where we've got another lady back in the House. The Queen, of course, is Duke of Lancaster, and Joan Lester has held on to Eton and Slough for Labour, and this certainly is a seat that the Conservatives were hoping